Hey everyone, I'm Adam Harry from BoLS with
Drake from Dragons Eye Comics and Fantasy.
And today we've got RWBY Combat Ready. Drake, RWBY Combat Ready, what is it?
So this is a kind of tactical skirmish game created in joint by the game development company Arcane Wonders and obviously the creators of RWBY, Rooster Teeth.
Do love me some Rooster Teeth.
Yeah.
So
Big fan.
So Combat Ready. So it's a skirmish game. How does it play? Is it co-op, competitive? What are you doing?
It is cooperative. You play up to 5 people together, playing as the huntresses that kind of featured in the main.
Makes sense.
Ruby, Vice, Blake, Yang, and Penny as well. The recent addition. Yeah. And you essentially kind of work together, fighting off forces of the Grim, other monsters, stuff like that. You can either do it in like sessions or one-off stuff like that, or there is also like support for a campaign mode where you actually grow and develop your combat skills.
Very cool. Let's take a look inside RWBY Combat Edition. RWBY Combat Ready. Drake, do you want to pop the box on this one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this game looks pretty cool. I like the box art right off the bat, and I know it's got kind of that matte, kind of gloss finish too. So,
yeah, the box felt nice. That was the first thing I noticed. I'm like, ooh, it's kind of.
Here's the one of the rule books here. So just flip through that real fast. It's not super complicated.
Very colorful. It's like whole backsplash art. For a rule book, it's very pretty.
We have a scenario book.
Scenarios.
This is just like how to create your own scenarios and kind of how to play 5-player co-op. All right.
Whole bunch of tokens and stuff like that. Good to see. Ooh, and then a kind of a main board.
Yeah. All right. So Hero Fury, Villain Fury. So let's pull that down real quick. So here's your kind of play board. Your miniature is going to move along this line, correct?
Right, and this is more or less how you used to track it. I like it because it's like a combo tracker.
Yeah.
Like as you gain fury, you gain bonuses. You gain XP, you gain bonuses to your speed, and then and your like kind of limit break-esque.
Yeah.
Ultimate stage, you gain bonuses to damage and stuff like that. Cool. But then the villain goes through that as well.
Yeah.
So it's like it's escalating, like ramping tension.
Nice, and it's just one-sided there. What else are we looking at here?
So we got character. Yeah, it looks like villain cards, things to fight, basically scenario.
Yeah.
Cues.
Who you're fighting.
And then our character boards.
Oh yeah, these are nice boards too. Okay, they're front and back. So we've got Ruby Rose. Yep. I don't know if the stats are different on the back or not, but
just double-sided for convenience.
Possibly.
Maybe.
But
it looks like it does look like it. It looks like they are the same front and back. I'm not seeing any significant difference. Just
but you got all five characters here, as we mentioned. So very cool. And then we've got a die. This is a D10, right?
Yeah, D10 for use. Some colorful cubes.
Yep.
Little pucks.
Pucks for probably keeping track of your spot on the board. And then we have some minis. These are kind of cool.
These are pretty good.
Yeah. That's obviously RWBY. They're color coordinated.
Yes. Everything's color coordinated.
I'm shocked, I tell you. Yeah. And actually the detail on these minis is not too shabby.
Yeah. Yang especially.
This one got a little bent in the box, but that's okay. A little hot water will fix that problem. Pretty cool. And this is one of the newer characters. This is Penny. Again, it might be a little hard to tell on the camera, but these do actually have some fairly good detail. They look a little flat because of the color and the light.
Yeah, the monochrome is hard to tell.
Hit them with a wash and you'll be able to see everything.
We've got
a couple of different decks.
Looks like character-specific cards, or it looks like it's also color-coded. You can kind of see that yellow, brown, and green. Well, this is Blake's.
This is probably the boss decks, or the bad guy decks. And then we have Grim decks too. Which, let me pop this out. There we go. Yeah, thugs. So it looks like you're actually going to be fighting and building up to bigger combats eventually.
Kind of reminds me of a deck building game.
Yeah, a little bit.
Good vacuum seal.
Yep, nothing in the bottom. We always like to check. You never know.
One of these days they'll pull some like magician stuff. They're like, oh, there's a whole nother game.
You laugh, but I have seen that happen. Where like they hide a bunch of the components underneath the box. So that's pretty much everything in the box. We're gonna pause real fast and bust some of this open and take a closer look. Let's go ahead and flip through the rulebook for RWBY Combat Ready. So this game plays a little bit closer to like a deck builder card game type of game, right?
Yeah, it's definitely not like, it's definitely not minis focused, like movement grid-based combat or anything like that. The minis are essentially components for the main deck and tracking your fury and stuff like that. Most of the gameplay actually is kind of an ongoing deck building game, where as you play your cards, your better ones, your higher tier cards start out of play, and then as you gain experience, either by gaining fury during or dealing damage to the villain, you can spend those XP to add these higher tier cards into your deck.
Yeah, and eventually you're gonna get your finishing move. To hopefully KO the bad guy. So let's talk about that real quick too, because the game is kind of set. We'll come back to this real fast, but the game is kind of set up in as a series of duels. So we'll flip over one page. So how this works, it's very anime.
Yeah.
So you have one character basically in a duel with the boss, and the duel takes place over a series of rounds. But don't worry, if you're not the active player, you can still participate. So you can still chuck cards, you can do combo attacks with the active player and stuff like that. So even though it's duel in air quotes, the team is still fighting together.
Yeah, you're not just sitting on the sidelines where the other person plays 5 turns without putting in anything.
Right.
And so I like that, like, engage that kind of focus. It's very cinematic. It even refers to the camera over here somewhere, where there's one person fighting and they'll do a series of strikes and then they'll bounce off and somebody else is the active player, the active character, and then they're fighting the boss.
Yeah.
And I think it's very unique. I think the way that the rounds are structured is probably the most interesting part of the game mechanically.
Yeah, it's an interesting and different way of doing that. Again, just because you have that one-on-one kind of fight, but it's really a one versus many fight with usually the scenario of the boss that you're facing down here. Let me back up real fast. This is the villain, not the villain board, but this is the board we looked at earlier. You do track the hero's fury, like Drake was saying. As you play, you get more XP, and then you can spend that XP to buy your upgrades for your attacks and stuff like that. And they might become faster or hit harder or both. The villain's fury is tracked here, and again, you do notice that the duel ends here. That's when the other player kind of cycles in. So the next person, clockwise, I think, of the active player gets to hop in the duel and do their thing. You do set up a villain card deck, and it's kind of neat because you can see the cards back before you flip it over, and that'll tell you what stance the villain will be in, kind of giving you a hint as to what's coming.
Right.
So you can kind of prepare for that.
As far as what card you're going to play, how you're going to move, you get a little bit of an idea.
Yeah.
How varied these are will, I'm sure, kind of
depend on the scenario and the villain. And there's quite a few different scenarios and villains, obviously, that you're going to be fighting through. I
believe, as far as right now, they have 3 villains, but that seems like an easy thing to be able to upgrade and stuff like that.
For sure. But yeah, it's a pretty cool game. Again, this goes into the more mechanics of playing different types of cards, upgrading how the sideline characters act, and stuff like that. So we won't go into all that, but you do gain experience in the game, which you can spend, like we were saying, to upgrade cards to their next level. There are 4 tiers of cards. Most of the time you're starting off with your tier 1 stuff, and you'll be able to upgrade into tier 2, 3, and 4.
Mm-hmm. And then eventually your ultimate or finishing it. And another thing that I want to call out, as far as the rulebook itself, there's very little that's just kind of negative space.
Yeah.
Most of these panels are like full art spreads behind it, especially this one stands out. And it's this very like lavishly illustrated rule book, and that I think that really is worth pointing out and worth looking at. And then, like we glanced at the end, there's also a bit of a plug as far as the making of the game, Rooster Teeth themselves, their artistic process and stuff like that.
It's neat. The other thing I want to flip through real fast is the combat book, or the scenario book for RWBY Combat Ready. This just talks about how to set up a scenario and how campaigns work. Campaigns are a series of linked scenarios, so ideally you start with an easy scenario, middle scenario, hard scenario, and kind of play through that, and that will create a campaign. You can actually also do linked campaigns if you want to, just play through all the scenarios. You can make a scenario, you could do all the scenarios in a row if you really wanted to, but that's how this game kind of functions. So you've got the starting aura is how many hit points essentially that character has, and as soon as one of the characters is out of hit points, they lose. So if you can take the boss's aura down to 0 before he takes all of you down to 0, you win. The other cool thing is just because your character is KO'd or it goes down to 0, you don't lose the scenario. Your friends can keep pushing. So hang out, hang in there. But yeah, different objectives for each scenario. Again, campaign play is included in this book, and it does have some sample scenarios that kind of walk you through, how to play or how to set up a scenario. But again, they're encouraging you to do it yourself.
Yeah, and each one is essentially broken down into 3, and there's also within the given campaign there's variations on how many players are for each objective.
Yeah.
So each scenario or each boss fight consists of 3 objectives, but then each of those objectives also have a varying number of recommended players. So if you're playing with a group of 2, you might get started, but then it gets even more challenging. For an objective specifically meant for 4 people.
Yeah. It also does have 5-player co-op, so you can do that, and it just says to add more aura to the villains. So, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. But that's pretty much the game. Again, all the decks and everything else included in the box are there to help you play. Each character's got their own unique abilities and attacks, which makes this game that adds to the replayability of this game. So you might play through one time as Ruby, next game you might play through as Weiss. So there's 5 characters to choose from. So yeah, go check this one out. Let's hop out for a really fast recap. Really cool stuff in there. I like the campaign support. I think I could see myself wanting to play long term.
Yeah, I think the minis turned out good too. I'm a fan.
Big fan. Let's go ahead and crunch the numbers on this one real fast. It is 2 to 5 players. Runtime's about an hour. Age range was 14 and up. 14 and up. Yeah. What's the price point on this one?
$49.99.
Yeah,
standard kind of $50 game.
Yep.
A little bit on the lower end considering it contains all these minis and components and stuff like that. So yeah, pretty standard.
Pretty cool stuff. And is this one brand new or been out for a while or?
This came out in the past week or so.
Okay.
I want to say last Wednesday.
So relatively new, but it's in stores right now. So go check it out. I'm Adam here from BoLS Souls.
And I'm Drake with Dragons and Comics and Fantasy.
And this has been another Tabletop Spotlight. Thanks again for watching. Tabletop Spotlight, brought to you by Dragon's Lair Comics and Fantasy. Click to subscribe. Check out more videos. And thanks for watching.